I'm bringing along some props for this video. I've got my iPad here and my reading glasses that I'm going to need to look at the other prop thing. Anyway, you'll see. We're going to go over some more of this Cascade game thing that I'm working on. And, yeah, it's just a continuation of the last video. Let's go. Greetings, good humans, and welcome to Tabletop Alchemy. How ridiculous am I getting with this? Let me start that all over. Greetings, good humans, and welcome to Tabletop Alchemy, where sometimes we actually do 3 videos on the same subject in a row, and they're continuous. It's kind of amazing, actually, right? I don't think I've really done that. You know, this is where I make videos that are kind of random because they just happen to be about whatever I happen to be working on at the moment in the hobby, and sometimes not even in the hobby. This is what you signed up for. It's called alchemy, man. Get with it. And we thank our patrons for supporting such alchemical experiments and stuff. Cheers to you guys for sticking around. Obviously, I'm not working with a script today because I have the PDF here on my iPad, and I thought I will try to screen record my manipulating of the document while I chat about what I've been working on. So, reader glasses on, you know, ocular improvement devices here. I have this like special gear table in here. Special gear is like not consumables and it's not like magical stuff. It's just like more, well, it's special gear, you know. You can have a scope for your rifle. You know, you have a mana or a magic focus that kind of gives you a bonus to your spirit stat, which is useful in casting spells, stuff like that, right? You could have a jetpack. A jetpack seems kind of powerful to have. It enables flying. Now, I do have a little chunk of rules for flying, but it does have a load of 3, so it's pretty heavy. In other words, you're gonna have to, you know, jostle some stuff around on your figure if they're gonna have a jetpack. So that's maybe a way to balance some of that stuff. At least it seems like in my mind it's a way to balance stuff. I'm not really sure. We got a grappling hook that allows vertical movement on terrain at full move rate versus the half move rate, which is pretty standard for most skirmish games, right? If you're going vertically over a wall or up a mountain or whatever, it's usually half your move stat. So if you have a grappling hook, you can go full movement. But again, it's a load of 2, so that's 2 less grenades you're going to be able to carry. And then I have this bandolier, and I wasn't sure about the bandolier. It might be OP. Might be a little overpowered. The bandolier takes up 1 load slot, but allows you to carry 3 load slots worth of, or load points worth of consumables, like grenades. So you get 2 of those for free, load-wise, right? Maybe that's too much. I don't know. Again, this is all in flux, right? This is a very simple table I made up for discovered caches, which is what I'm calling like the treasure markers right now. They're cache markers. Treasure wasn't really the right terminology for this game because of the lore and the setting, right? So these tables here, the throwables and special gear, the armors and the weapon stuff, they don't have any side numbers, right? But now the rest of these tables we're going to chat about have side numbers, which means these are random tables, right? So like this one says it's set up for drawing 1 random tile. You draw a tile and the full value of that tile is what you're comparing to the table as a total, right? Because you can draw a double blank, which is a 0. You can draw a tile that has a blank and a single pip, that's a 1, all the way up to, of course, the double 6s, which is a 12. Now, speaking of these tables, before I go through any more of these, let's go to this page right here. So we talked last time about the math of drawing a random domino versus rolling a die. Or, in some cases, drawing 2 random tiles, which is what I'm calling the dominoes, drawing 2 of them and add them together. And I had to go to ChatGPT to get the mathematical probability of each number that could be drawn, right? So we talked about that in the last video. What I did early last week was I went through and I was like, okay, I got to figure this out so that I can make tables on the fly. So here you can see I've got 2 tables that can hold 5 items, right? 5 list line items. So 5 random things. The reason I made 2 of them is because the way I could break down these numbers, as you can see here, I started to gray in the background of the random numbers, which I'm going to do as a uniform thing throughout, but I didn't do it on all these tables here. Anyway, so these are just examples. On this one here, right, it's a much different breakdown of the percentage chance of getting a certain item off of that table. So 5 to 7, you have a 35% chance of pulling a 5 or a 6 or a 7 as a single tile value out of a set of dominoes, right? And then you have, obviously, you can just, it's visually self-explanatory. If you draw a 0 or a 1, you only have a 7% chance of drawing that. Same for the 11 and 12. So those items in a 5-item table, the first item and the last item are only going to have a 7% chance of being drawn each, right? But then I was able to also, with a 5-item table, I was also able to, I don't know what the terms are I'm supposed to be saying for this stuff. I was able to pull out a sequence breakdown of the possible numbers out in a much more, this version of a 5-item table is a much more, it's a much shallower curve of percentage, right? Like the lowest one here, or the most rare one, is a number 6 with a 14% chance of drawing that. And then the other ones are pretty much the same, 21, 22% chance for the other 4 items. So this is like the most, it's one of the tables with one of the shallowest curves of chance. So there might be times where I want to use a 5-item table, but sometimes I might want to have this extreme thing where something in the middle, some items are way more easy or have a much higher chance of being drawn by the player than maybe a couple of the other ones. Or if I want there to be a much more flat curve where all 5 items can generally have a pretty decent chance of being drawn equal to each other, I use this version, right? All of these, there's only one table here that is for drawing 2 tiles, and that'll give me 15 items. I can have up to 15 items in a single table, and you get the results by drawing 2 tiles and adding them together. And you can see here, it also has this one has a pretty flat curve. The most rare items are the 3%, and the most common items have a 9% chance of appearing. But there's 3, 11s, 12s, and 13s all have a 9% chance of happening. And then the 10 and the 14 have 8%. I mean, that's a very shallow curve, right? All the way down to the ends. But then, to draw 1, 2, 3, or 4, you have a 3% chance of doing that, which is, it's half the possibility of rolling a 20 on a 20-sided die. And then all the rest of these tables are based on drawing a single tile. So out of drawing a single tile, I can have a table that has 5 items, 2 different types of tables there we talked about. I can have a 7-item table, which gives me another fairly shallow curve, but it's kind of this weird, like this. It's kind of like a 2-hill with a saddle sort of curve if we're trying to visually represent what the chances are of pulling things out. But it gives me a way to have 7 items in a table. And I just kind of wanted to work out all the different variations that were feasible with finite numbers of items in a table. You'll notice too that the number of items in a table are always odd numbers. They don't have to be, but it just kind of works out symmetrically that way. So I could have a table that has 9 items, and that's another very shallow curve. This one's similar to that 15-item table where, the lowest chance to pull something up is a 7%, but then there's 3 line items that have basically double that, and that's the peak, right? So this is another one that has a very flat, a shallow curve, but it has 9 items. So I just want, and then I have one that's 11, an 11-item table. Again, nice shallow curve, 1 item in the middle at 14%, but the surrounding ones are only 11%, and then they drop down. There's like 6 items on there that only have 7% chance of showing up. I wanted to make these templates, and they've come in very handy. Not that I've made a lot of 7 or 9 or 11 item tables yet. I used the 5-item table here, and you can see for the discovered caches, so the cache markers that you find in a scenario, if it's just a random one at the end of the scenario, when the game's over, you're going to draw a tile to find out what you found, right? You can find some elementium, you can find something crafted. You see there that's there's two different table lines that say something crafted, but that's because each one lets you roll or draw, lets you draw on a different subtable. I have a table for potions, because those are crafted. And I have a table for elemental oils. The most common thing that you're going to draw is raw materials. And I have like so you would draw on the plants and minerals table. And then you have a low chance, both the elementium is a low chance, and you find something strange. That's on the strange items table. That's also a low percentage chance of happening. If we're curious like which table version I used for that, we can just look at the very first number pair, 0 to 1. So if I go back to my tables here, so 0 to 1 means I ended up using this table with the very high. So we have a very high chance of finding raw materials, and then pretty high chances of finding potions or elemental oils, and then very low chances of finding something strange or more elementium, right? So I have a little, so I thought maybe would be kind of fun to run a sort of an emulation of a crafting system. It's not going to be very intricate or anything. It's just this idea that you can find raw materials, so plants and minerals, and this is a 15 item table. So this one's going to have some very rare items in it. And I kind of ordered these in what I think will be the rarest items. And of course, 11, 12, and 13, the results on this plants and minerals table, 11, 12, and 13 are the highest average. Those are the ones you have 9% chance of finding equally across all those. And so that's, now again, these names and stuff will probably change a little bit or whatever. So greasy pods, a flask of oil, and scintillating water. These are all like three base things you need to create potions or elemental oils or whatever. And I kind of wrote out little descriptions of what they do. But then going on to the other line items, you have elements, either minerals or plants. You combine them. So when you find caches and you find raw materials, you notate them. You notate those on your character sheets, and once you have like 3 things that go together, you can mark them off your character sheet, and you've now crafted that potion or that oil or whatever. You know, I have little examples here of crafting potions. You know, it takes greasy pods, mineral, or a plant, and it takes scintillating water. I mean, this is all common video gamey kind of stuff, right? For crafting stuff. But it's a way to mitigate or extend just people finding potions ready to go all the time. It kind of steps that out, so you can still, you know, have a chance of finding a potion or an oil, but you have a higher chance of finding raw materials, which means, you know, maybe you have to play a scenario while you've just got some raw materials on you. You don't have the actual potion to use yet, so it kind of is trying to mitigate this like over usage of potions and stuff. I don't know if it's worth doing. It's just an idea that I'm running with at this point. When I say elemental oils, you're probably going, you know, like what exactly are you getting at with that? I've never, you know, we don't use those. We use potions in all kinds of magic games and stuff. I kind of got the idea, let's just be honest, I kind of stole the idea from a video game called Outward. I've been playing that with my daughter. And in Outward, you can mix rags with oils that have different, like, I don't know, it's like a frost oil from certain plants or a fire oil from another plant. And basically what that is, it's kind of like a potion, but instead of imbibing it, it's like you put potion effects externally, physically on an item. And Outward, you can take a fire rag, you can put it on your sword, and then your sword is a flaming sword for X number of turns or minutes or whatever, right? So it's kind of the same exact concept here with the oils. And then I kind of wrote down like how long do they last. They last for a full scenario. Some of them last for 1 round. Same thing with the potions. You know, we have I called the potion that gives you a +1 to spirit, which is used as armor when you're having spells cast at you or whatever. Or if you're casting spells, you use spirit as the bonus to your cascade tile value total, right? Whereas like in melee and ranged, you use your melee stat and your range stat, right? So anyway, I don't know why I called it overconfidence, but it's in there now. It can always be changed, but maybe we'll just leave it. It sounds funny. Yeah, all good. I hope you guys get some good hobbying done. It's October. Man, come on. Oh, that's right. This is my 3-year anniversary on YouTube. And you know what October means? That's right. It's Black Cat season. She's my Halloween charm, right? The October kitty. So it's all good. 3 years on YouTube. Still here, still making videos, hanging on by my fingernails. Try to have fun. And I hope you guys are having fun. And, you know, the both of us, we'll see ya.